Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has left an unmistakable impact across the gaming universe. Such a big deal that I've opened several other videos this exact same way. But the more time passes, the more this, 6-year-old game has had its flaws exposed. From fewer gameplay modes than past entries, to issues with the online, to a bunch of other nitpicks that build up, there have been things that, in hindsight, could have been handled better. Which is relevant as we look toward the future and toward Nintendo's next console, because whenever one of those comes around, a new Smash Bros. Game is never far behind. While some people can't imagine how Smash 6, or whatever they call it, could possibly improve on the most ambitious crossover fighting game ever, there are actually enough weak spots that I've already found 30 ways to do it. So let's go down the list. How could Smash 6 end up a better game than Ultimate? Let's start with one of Ultimate's biggest problems, the shallow amount of single-player content. Smash might be famous for its multiplayer mayhem, but there aren't always other people available all the time. Even with more hardcore fighting games, you'd be surprised how many people hardly touch versus modes. They show up for the single-player experience, and Ultimate kind of lacked in that department. The biggest way Smash 6 could stand out from its predecessor? Reviving some of the modes that games like Brawl and Melee were known for. A new spin on things like event matches, expanded stadium challenges, and more would be step one toward appealing to people even if the game's roster isn't as grandiose. But we can't just have old modes return. We need new stuff, especially a new adventure mode, or story mode, or you get the idea. A big new campaign that draws interest on its own. While something on the scope of Subspace Emissary might be impractical, since it was a major strain on Brawl's development, something lighter with high replayability could fit the bill. Or maybe something closer to Melee's adventure mode, with its different levels paying tribute to different series. Whatever form it takes, it could let all these different worlds actually come together in more ways than just the characters fighting. Next is something Smash hasn't fully done before. There's always a cinematic guide that explains the basics if you idle on the title screen, and quick tips on the loading screens, but nothing more detailed for anyone who wants to understand more. Feels like an odd thing to be missing even if the gameplay is intuitive, right? So how about some briskly paced interactive tutorials next to training mode in the menu for players who want that? Could even include short guides for each character that go over important moves or mechanics, so players can understand how they work. There's something else that could help with that. Some video games include mini-games that double as ways to learn fundamental mechanics and strategies. Street Fighter 6 did it recently, and Nintendo has done it before with, of all things, Mario Superstar Baseball. What if Smash 6 included mini-games that also train platform fighter fundamentals? For example, what about a mini-game where you'd need to keep a ball from landing on the stage by hitting it upward? Once you've hit it a few times, it starts dodging or double jumping like a player would, and you have to figure out what habits different types of balls like doing and counter them to keep the juggle going. The stage builder's evolved a lot since Brawl. Always fun to mess around with creative, and sometimes inappropriate, designs to fight on. But Smash 6 could expand it further. If character-specific stadium challenges were too much work for the devs, how about expanding the stage builder to let players create their own? Break the targets, board the platforms, race to the finish, you name it. Could let the creator restrict which characters can be used, and place special targets that can only be broken by certain moves. Casual players could make hilarious obstacle courses, while competitive types could build maps that train certain techniques. There's one mode in particular I want to see make a grand return. Smash Run was a really cool successor to the mode that sold people on Kirby Air Ride, even if its execution in Smash 3DS was a little too rigid. Imagine, if you will, an expanded version for Smash 6. More than one map, more custom rules, and the ability to play it online could combine to make it a huge draw. Admittedly, in-person multiplayer could be difficult since splitting the screen up would make players' views tiny, but maybe there's a workaround, like making an abridged version playable on the big regular stages? What's another way Smash 6 could improve on Ultimate? For everything the game did well, its presentation and other surface-level stuff leaves some room to grow. For example, while Ultimate brought characters together from a ton of different worlds, it didn't have those worlds truly interact much. Even character-specific victory screens stick to opponents within their series. I've seen a lot of fans hope a future title lets the characters play off each other more. Some actual banter during match intros, or gesturing for the unvoiced characters, short cutscenes during certain classic mode fights, even little things like showing characters hanging out in their downtime in the menus, like every fan comic under the sun has done at least once, would help Smash 6 feel even more like an actual crossover, even if its roster is smaller. Speaking of voice lines, this could be a chance to update them. A lot of the cast are still using their lines from Brawl, and even those who aren't could use a refresh. Imagine Bowser using the actual voice he's had for the last 15 plus years, or Samus getting spoken lines that include words from the Chozo language. If it was my call, I'd just give everyone new voice work and bite the bullet on how much it costs. Would require spending more on union fees, but Smash is such a cash cow that it can handle the cost. Other fighting games have done it already. It'd be worth it for the game to feel new, and for Cloud and the gang to finally get their English voices. We've had a handful of alt costumes before that changed the character's model, but it's something Smash has underutilized compared to other big fighting games. Every DLC costume from Smash 4 onward has been for the Mii fighters, which does let them work in outfits based on other characters, but doing that and nothing else has left everyone else out to dry. Some reasonably priced extra costumes for other fighters would give fans more stuff they've been wanting and make the devs more money. Hell, my main has a few I'd be willing to pay a few bucks for. This one might be harder to pull off, but what about a feature that let you create your own custom color palettes for characters? I'm picturing a simplified version of what Rivals of Aether does, with each fighter having 2 to 4 base colors that players could adjust. For example, you could change the color of Mario's overalls, boots, and hat/shirt, while Link could have his tunic, leg wear, and shield adjusted. There'd be some limits, I imagine. Certain characters would have the color ranges on their bodies restricted like their canon alts in previous games, and any custom alts you use online would only appear on your end. Even then, it'd still let players leave their personal marks on the characters they play. One more thing. We've had collectibles in every game since Melee, be it trophies, stickers, or spirits. Each have had their pros and cons. Spirits are easier to make than trophies were, so there's more, and most have special gimmick fights connected to them, but they don't feel as rewarding to obtain. There must be a balance we can strike here, right? Could Smash 6 at least let the fighters in major rewards get full-on models? Could they do something else entirely, like collectible cards with the rarest and flashiest locked behind achievements? Wait, what if there was an in-game trading card game you could play with them? Let's delve deeper. Ultimate's controls and match options leave room for improvement, so let's see where Smash 6 could do better. One legitimately helpful thing Ultimate did was let us turn stage hazards off without changing the stage layout. However, tying it to the rule set you're using is clunkier than necessary. We can already toggle between default, battlefield, and Omega versions of stages on the select screen, so why not add hazardless variants to that rotation? This would help out casual and competitive players both. The former could freely choose whether or not they want to deal with the more gimmicky hazards. The latter could run tournaments with both hazards on and hazards off versions of stages without having to jump between different rule sets. Related to that, turning hazards off doesn't always work as well as it could. Several stages still have elements that get in the way, even with them off. What if more work was done to make these versions better for straight fights? For example, picking Halberd could have you start on the ship and stay there instead of dealing with the intro section and its walk-offs. Congo Falls could remove the 2 upper platforms near the blast zone and the rock ledge on the far right, the latter literally broken off. And Arena Feryx could stay on the statue layout with the statues non-interactable so they can't interrupt attacks or block projectiles. This would let players who want a clean duel with hazards off have more stages that facilitate it. Hey, maybe we could call them dual form variants. One of Smash's strengths as a party game is how flexible its rules are, and how it lets you customize them to your heart's desire. Mostly. Smash 6 could expand this further. Could include competitive friendly features like letting you choose which stages can be selected with a given rule set on, cutting down on clutter if you only want some of them available, or crazier stuff like choosing from multiple potential types of sudden death. Imagine 2 players tying at the end of a match and a weak CPU opponent appears and it turns into a mad dash to KO them first. On to controls, one gripe I've seen people have with Ultimate is how rigid its movement can be. While getting around is snappier than in Brawl or Smash 4, stuff like dashing or turning around or navigating platforms can be more restrictive than it really needs to be, even compared to past entries. For Smash 6, I would aim for the same pace of play Ultimate has, but add more flow to movement options so players in this platform fighter can better express themselves with their platforming, while still having moments of vulnerability where appropriate and making sure that extra flow isn't locked behind advanced techniques, so having fun moving around doesn't require passing a steep skill floor first. This one might go over the heads of some people, but if you know, you know. Ultimate's input buffer has issues. It treats buttons held down before an action finished as if they had just been pressed, causing the occasional unwanted attack or unwanted air dodge off stage that have caused a few too many premature deaths. While reverting the buffer to Smash 4 levels would help, Smash 6 could add it to the custom controls, would let players adjust how long their buffer window is and toggle whether or not it reads held inputs. This would be a huge help toward the game feeling better to play. Trust me. There are several smaller details the next game could do something about. Consider this section a grab bag of things that'd be small on their own, but could still make a difference. Smash's training mode has always been a few steps behind. While the version in Ultimate is serviceable, it's missing key features that other fighting games adopted years prior, like the ability to make hitboxes visible so you can see the range of your moves, or showing which buttons you've pressed in the last few seconds so you can spot mistakes, or even the option to record a series of inputs for the CPU to repeat, or save and load game states so you can practice certain combos or counterplay. Admittedly, this is purely for the competitive crowd. To keep casual players from getting overwhelmed, these options could go into another advanced tab, out of the way. This next one's probably a hot take. Unlockable secret characters used to be huge surprises. You'd hear rumors from classmates or see someone playable in your friend's version and have your mind blown. But nowadays, with everyone so connected and info spreading at lightning speed, those secrets don't stay secret for long. Which means there's not much point anymore in forcing players to jump through hoops for several hours to unlock the characters they want to play. So, I think it'd be best to have the entire roster available from the start now, or at least add a button code you can input on the title screen so tournament setups can temporarily unlock everyone. But wait, you might be thinking, unlocking stuff is still fun to do, which is true, so Smash 6 could still have other less crucial stuff as unlockable rewards. We can still have music and collectibles obtained this way, and add more from there. For example, what if beating Classic Mode using Ike on 7.0 intensity or higher unlocked the outfit of his promoted Vanguard class as an alt, or clearing a certain event match on the New Donk City stage unlocked Mario's classy suit from Odyssey, or hey, maybe beating Adventure Mode with all of Smash 64's original 8 characters would give you a new design for the menus based on Smash 64. Going in a different direction, more video games lately have had extra accessibility options. Lets players with sensory issues or other drawbacks they can't do anything about still play and have fun with everyone else. How could a fighting game pull that off? Well, a few recent ones have already laid the groundwork. Smash 6 could have different color filters to help out different types of color blindness, or subtitles during cutscenes for the hearing impaired, or people playing on low volume. Or what if the dual mode versions of stages with moving backgrounds stayed in one place, being less distracting and letting anyone with motion sickness play without getting screwed by something they have no control over? And there's one thing Ultimate really dropped the ball on. Post-launch balance patches help smooth out characters that end up too strong or too weak as a metagame develops. While Ultimate had a lot of patches, they didn't help much at all. Very few of the strongest or most demoralizing characters ever got nerfed. Most buffs to low tiers were just random move deals 1% more damage now in a way that doesn't actually help them, and some high tier characters got meaningfully buffed instead. It felt like whoever handled Ultimate's patches was hardly paying attention and didn't understand how to make meaningful changes. If Smash 6 can fix that, it'd be huge for the game's long-term health. Alright, time to talk about online modes. This one's well known for being one of Ultimate's rough spots, so how could Smash 6 improve it? First is a no-brainer. Ultimate has famously shaky performance online. Connections can be hit and miss, and the more experienced you are, the more you feel the extra input lag affecting everything, to where online is a completely different metagame from offline. Hopefully better netcode is high priority for Smash 6, which is honestly plausible. The biggest thing limiting Ultimates was probably the Switch hardware itself, so a new console should, hopefully, be less held back. And all that time in 2020 where we had to rely on playing online showed just how important strong netcode can be. Ultimate's online modes are one step forward, one step back. Letting players set up their own rule sets is great, but putting casual and low-level competitive players into one matchmaking pool, which often favors finding fights quickly rather than finding opponents with matching rules, isn't. This isn't ideal for either side. Competitive types don't want their practice sessions thrown off by free-for-alls with item spawns on high, and casuals get sick of 3 stock 7-minute items off matches on small battlefield or Omega stages. changes. I propose we go back to splitting matchmaking into several groups. One for free-for-alls, one for 1v1 matches, maybe even a rotating anything goes queue with intentionally crazy rules like Splatoon 3 did sometimes. Where could competitive players go? A new, more conventional ranked mode. I know Smash likes doing its own thing, but at this point, I think it'd be better to just follow what other fighting games have done. It'd have a list of tiers to ascend through, resetting every now and then, player profiles with custom aesthetics to unlock by accomplishing things in ranked battles, and rules based on the typical competitive ones that Nintendo is clearly aware of after all the events they've highlighted and sponsored behind the scenes. I can see how this might intimidate casual players, so we can isolate this stuff to the ranked mode, letting competitors have somewhere to truly test themselves without scaring away anyone who isn't into that. Semi-related, arenas were a great idea on paper. In practice, there are issues dragging them down that Smash 6 could greatly improve on. First, let multiple matches go on at a time in the same arena. Other fighting games have done this with their online lobbies, letting players in bigger groups fight more often instead of losing once and having to sit in line for 15 minutes to get another shot. Second, can we do something about how connections in arenas are handled? The more people are present in an arena in Ultimate, including spectators who aren't actively playing, the worse the input lag gets. Fix that up, maybe anyone spectating just sees a playback, and it'd go a long way. And there's one mode I'm legit surprised Ultimate never made playable online. Squad Strike. The King of Fighters-esque tag team mode is a lot of fun, but it doesn't get much attention when it's limited to offline play as its own side mode. Making it available online, maybe as its own queue, maybe as a rule set option, would let players have even more ways to play. Casuals could come up with crazy theme matches. Competitive players could experiment with different team comps and create a whole alternate meta. If the Switch's successor console can pull it off, this could be a big deal. Finally, let's take a step beyond the gameplay. The announcements and marketing surrounding Ultimate also caused a few problems in the long run, despite how many memorable moments it brought. How could Smash 6 carry over the good without the bad? Step 1. Make it clear what fans should expect as soon as possible. When Ultimate emphasized all the franchises being added to the game, playing up the celebration of gaming angle the more DLC went on, it made significant numbers of fans think the remaining newcomers would be chosen entirely by what would make that celebration as big as possible. More and more of them assumed every upcoming character must be shooting for the moon, then Mars, then Jupiter, which partially explains the loud backlash when some were chosen for other reasons, like doubling back for a couple that didn't make the base roster. While part of it was the community jumping to conclusions, I think the marketing accidentally gave them the wrong idea. If Smash 6's announcements keep that in mind, it could keep things from ever getting as toxic. Contributing to this was how few newcomers Ultimate had at the start. Every prior entry had a sizable amount. Smash 4 had 12 plus the Miis plus the extra clones, but Ultimate only had half that. While bringing back every veteran in Smash history caught a lot of attention, I think it came at the cost of drastically less new content, leaving a lot of character supporters scrambling once DLC started. If Smash 6 doesn't attempt everyone is here again, it should really go back to raising the newcomer count. Would even help the game stand out more next to Ultimate, though then there'd be fans of cut veterans clamoring for them to come back, so ideally there'd be a way for more of them to return over time without cutting down on DLC newcomers. Speaking of which, once DLC gets going, and at this point it's when, not if, it'd help if we had a clearer idea of what to expect. The further Ultimate's DLC went on, the more things got out of hand from fans filling in the blanks with their wildest ideas, as more and more expected each reveal to one-up the last, as if the hype from the reveals was all that mattered. Giving fans a clearer picture of what types of fighters or updates are on the way might cause a reaction at first, but I think that initial bucket of cold water could legitimately help in the long term by keeping expectations more reasonable so the fans hype more responsibly. All of this would work toward the core idea that would help ensure Smash 6 is a success. Create a unique identity for itself. Simply repeating what Ultimate did wouldn't get as much attention a second time, especially when Ultimate will still be playable on the Switch's successor. Instead, Smash 6 could step away from Ultimate and focus on being new and refreshing. Think of it this way. Ultimate was like the climactic final chapter of a major story arc. Wouldn't it make sense then to have the next game be the start of a new saga? Pull that off, and it'd be a brand new experience free to do its own thing without being expected to out-spectacle its predecessor every step of the way. That's a lot, huh? 30 different ways that Smash 6, whenever it happens, could legitimately improve on Ultimate. Adding more single-player content, both old and new, refreshing the presentation to feel more like worlds colliding, new additions to rules and controls, smoother online play, a bunch of small improvements that would add up, and more thoughtful marketing that make talking about the game more fun and less stressful, even going into its eventual DLC. And I probably missed even more. Are there any other ways Smash 6 could stand out that I overlooked? I'm interested to hear what you think. Hopefully the comments don't get as hostile as speculation threads used to. Thanks to these people here for helping with this video. Thanks as well to my patrons for continuing to support me into the new year. And if you're in the mood for more Smash videos like this, I recommend these from recently. I do a lot of speculative what-if stuff if you're looking for more. So, until next time, we wait and see what Smash's future holds.